Hello everyone, welcome to Substance Use Support Group. How are we all doing today? Okay. Nolan, are you falling asleep?
Oh, sorry, what? Oh, I stopped drinking, but I'm still really tired. I don't know why.
I think I have just the person for you to see.
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a sleep doctor. What brings you in today?
Well, I have a drinking problem, and I feel like it's affected my sleep a lot. So I feel like my sleep quality lately has just been terrible. I'll be waking up a lot of times during the middle of the night. Like, I feel like my sleep's really fragmented. And also, I feel like I'm waking up in the second half of the night a lot. I feel like it's really affected my life a lot. Like, I feel really on edge. I feel pretty irritable. And like, also, like, there'll be times where I'll have trouble remembering like some really simple things. Like, I feel like my short-term memory is affected. I feel like my academic performance has also suffered from it as well. So.
Okay, I think I know just the person for this. My friend Erin. I'll call her up.
Hi, I'm sleep scientist Erin, and I was referred by my colleague Megan to tell you guys a bit about how alcohol use disorder can affect sleep. So patient N talked a bit about the symptoms he's been having with his sleep related to his alcohol use. He talked a bit about his difficulties with academic performance, his memory, his attention, his decision making, and his emotional regulation. He said that he's been having some trouble in his personal life as a result of his alcohol use. He also talked about his sleep. He said that he's been having fragmented sleep, particularly within the later half of his sleep, a reduction of total sleep time, grogginess and fatigue upon waking, and that this has been affecting his days. Something patient N talked a lot about is how when he used to be just a casual drinker, he would have no trouble falling asleep, and that the alcohol would actually help him fall asleep. But since his alcohol use has turned disorderly, he's been having trouble falling asleep and trouble staying asleep. This is because in someone with alcohol use disorder, acute intoxication and withdrawal increases sleep onset latency, meaning that it is harder for a person with alcohol use disorder to fall asleep after drinking or when they're in withdrawal, which is what patient N is experiencing. Something that's important to keep in mind when talking about alcohol's effect on sleep is this positive feedback loop we see between abuse of alcohol or any substance and sleep disruptances. These two things reinforce each other, and we'll be going back to those a lot when figuring out how patient N can help his sleep and maybe reduce his alcohol intake.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah, I was wondering how common it is to see someone else with these symptoms.
Let's look at the prevalence of alcohol use disorders on sleep disorders. So alcohol use disorder is the most common substance use disorder. Sleep problems affect about 50 to 70 million Americans. 1 out of 10 adults report the use of alcohol to treat insomnia. And 18% of people with alcohol use disorder suffer from insomnia, compared to the 10% who suffered without alcohol use disorder. We'll look back at this further when we consider the positive feedback loop. Nolan, are you sleeping? While he's sleeping, let's look at the neurobiology of this disorder. We'll look at sleep scientist Sarah and see what she has to say.
Let's look at some neurobiology. We're going to start by looking at GABA, which is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. When GABA binds to receptors on a neuron, it makes the neuron less likely to fire. This inhibitory function is essential for maintaining balance in the brain and preventing overexcitation. So how does it work? It works through two main receptors, GABA A and GABA B. In GABA A, when an ion channel opens, negatively charged chloride flows into the cell, which causes hyperpolarization. That means that the neuron is less likely to fire. On the other hand, through a different mechanism, the GABA B receptor also causes hyperpolarization when potassium, positively charged, flows out of the cell. This inhibitory function is important because it reduces anxiety, promotes sleep, and even moderates the effects of substances like alcohol. This lowering of firing chances ultimately calms down neural activity. So GABA's primary function is to reduce neurotransmission and activity, so that would calm the brain and reduce excitability. When GABA activity is increased, it would produce sedative effects. This means that when people drink, alcohol affects their GABA activity, which means that it would promote sleep. So we can look at different effects that alcohol has on the sleep of non-chronic users and chronic users. So in a more casual drinker, alcohol might be initially sedative. Like we saw before, when it acts on the GABA receptors that promote sleep and relaxation, a non-chronic user might have an easier time falling asleep. In chronic users, similar to patient N, as we saw before, you'd have increased sleep fragmentation for most of the night. You'd see a reduction in slow wave sleep and reduced REM sleep. In situations with tolerance, that means that patient N might need more alcohol to induce the same sedative effect that their non-chronic counterparts are using. And then when it comes to rebound, this is the idea that when a person like patient N stops drinking, the brain is trying to catch up on REM, which disrupts the entire balance of the sleep cycles. And so that would include possible nightmares and vivid dreams.
Anyways, I was just thinking, like, back to what you said, and I started having sleep problems, like, from when I was in high school, and to be honest, I started drinking alcohol some nights just to help me fall asleep.
Okay, this sounds a lot like bidirectionality, which sleep scientist Bell will now further explain.
Thank you, Megan. So what now I will touch on is the bidirectionality between alcohol and sleep. Adolescents with sleep issues are at a higher risk for alcohol abuse. Sleep disturbances may cause emotional and psychological distress, where adolescents may turn to alcohol to seek relief. As well as this, poor sleep can interfere with the adolescent brain, inhibiting development and increasing their risk-taking behaviors. Finally, the adolescent brain is more responsive to rewards. This bidirectionality leads to a positive feedback loop between substance use and sleep disturbances.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this cycle of addiction and how sleep is impacted in each of the three phases. The first phase in this cycle is the binge intoxication phase. So intoxication leads to faster sleep onset, as we just saw before, and poorer sleep quality because of that sleep fragmentation that we discussed. In the second phase, when a patient stops drinking, you see a decrease in slow wave sleep and limited REM sleep recovery. And then in the third phase, with abstinence, a patient would be in the preoccupation or anticipation phase, where people would have a slower sleep onset, so it's harder to fall asleep, as we're starting to see in patient N, and persistent sleep disturbances. Additionally, these patients might have an increase in REM sleep.
So I've also just been Googling a lot of things, and I'm seeing a lot of different, like, risk factors. Can you just tell me a bit about the ones that I'm, at risk of?
Yeah, so your condition can lead you to risk for many different kinds of disorders, and we'll look at that through sleep scientist Erin.
Thanks, Megan. So now we'll be looking at some possible disorders that stem from alcohol use disorder or alcohol abuse. And we'll be focusing on the ones highlighted in yellow. The first one is insomnia disorder, which is quite prevalent in those who have experienced abusing alcohol. It's been shown through both subjective and objective measures that alcohol abuse is bidirectionally linked with insomnia. Subjective reports show that those who abuse alcohol have had fragmented sleep and issues both falling asleep and staying asleep throughout the night, whereas objective polysomnographic measures have shown disturbances in the sleep cycles. Circadian rhythm disorders is another bidirectional issue that stems from alcohol consumption. Those with a disrupted circadian rhythm will have more reward-seeking tendencies, which may lead to alcohol consumption. On the other hand, abuse of alcohol can also lead to disruptions in the circadian rhythm. So this is another self-reinforcing issue. The last thing is insufficient sleep duration, which is defined as sleep that is less than 6 hours. Not much is known on this disorder, but it is known that when this is comorbid with insomnia, which it often is, it could lead to higher rates of morbidity and mortality in those with alcohol use disorder.
So I was in a substance abuse support group, and they told me I should come see a sleep doctor. What do you think I should do for possible interventions on how to better myself?
Well, there are many interventions that we can discuss. I'll show you. So looking at the interventions for Nolan's condition, we can look at it from two ways. One being an alcohol-focused approach, and one being a sleep-focused approach. So we can look at things like pharmacotherapy, which deals with different drugs that help Nolan fall asleep quicker. Things like behavioral interventions like CBTI, counseling or therapy, exercise or diet modifications, or things like peer support groups, which patient N is currently a part of, like Alcoholics Anonymous and Smart Recovery. Moving on to the more important sleep-focused approaches, I'll focus mainly on cognitive behavioral therapy as it's the gold standard in sleep interventions. But firstly, for pharmacotherapy, Nolan can use non-addictive drugs such as melatonin and suvorexant or lemborexant or trazodone, all non-addictive in nature, and he can focus on sleep hygiene techniques such as maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, consistent light exposure cycles, or stimulus control. But now I'm going to talk more about sleep restriction therapy and progressive relaxation technique. Cognitive behavioral therapy that targets both alcohol and sleep-based approaches, it's the best approach because it targets both the root of Nolan's alcoholism and also counteracting the effects of alcohol and Nolan's sleep impairment. So looking first at sleep restriction therapy, what it does is increases his sleep drive by limiting time in bed, leading to higher quality sleep over time. Sleep restriction therapy helps reinforce quality sleep by building sleep pressure and reducing time spent lying awake. Progressive relaxation technique promotes his mental and physical relaxation in his sleep environment. So this means maintaining a relaxing and sleepful environment when he goes to bed so that he associates his bedroom only with sleep.
Hello, support group. How's everyone feeling today?
I'm feeling great. That sleep doctor you recommended really helped me out. Looks like these guys could use some too.